Certified Anusara Yoga teacher here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And today's class that I wanted to talk about, it has this theme, and it's inspired by a number of different sources, but I'm thinking back to some of my work with Paul Muller Ortega, wonderful teacher, meditation teacher and philosophy teacher. And this word that he used a lot about piercing through things. There's also melting and things like that. But this idea that sometimes we have to apply a certain type of energy to get through something that melting doesn't really perform. And so I'm taking quite a bit of liberty in using this in my own particular way, but I want to use it with you today. And that sometimes to open to grace or to get through whatever that is between us in that deeper connection, that sometimes we have to do a type of practice, a type of ritual, or a type of self-drive that moves us through that boundary or barrier, rather than just trying to melt through it and let ourselves kind of move through it by osmosis or the right time, or however you want to think about it. And this is figurative and metaphorical, so use it how you would like. If you have a good seat, nice zafu, take your seat and let your eyes relax. And then do your breath. I'm going to keep this down to a short intro. We're keeping these a little bit short today for posting them out online, so we're going to be brief about this. Take a few breaths and try to soften. And this is softening, not quite the piercing. Soften down into a deeper place where you can experience things a little different than when you're just kind of uprighting the surface. If you feel ready, go ahead and bring your hands up to your heart. So I will just go through the Anusara chant once, followed by an Om. And you're welcome to just listen or join in wherever you are. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachetananda Murtaye Nich Prapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Breathe and soften. Let yourself gently enter that space. You're going to let your hands come down and your eyes open. Great to see you. Okay. I want to get onto this. So we're going to take a lunge, and I'm not quite mirroring. I haven't taken the time to figure out how this looks over there. Take your right foot forward into a kneeling lunge. Real basic. I want to start off kind of gentle on this one. Let your lunge go forward and just let it soften and lean. So lean into the earth, lean into the ground. Right here, we're just tipping into spring, and we've had snow and rain and sun in the last 24 hours, a number of times through that cycle. So right now, the ground is wet. It's not so hard. It's mushy and it's cold. Switch sides. So if I think about the park where we went for a walk yesterday, if I just lean forward, my body is just sinking into the mud, the soft earth down there. And if this was a couple of weeks ago, the earth, on the path would be frozen. I'd just be leaning against the top of it and only just skimming the surface. Let your body just lean. Okay, now switch legs again. And I am abbreviating this, and if this is a little too quick for you, you're welcome to slow it down on your own. But we're keeping these down to about 45 minutes because it works easier for some of the posts. Lunge forward, but this time activate both legs. And I just want you to push straight down with the front leg, and through the back knee, push down as well. And I'm hoping that that creates a little internal lift. It's not hugging in and squeezing up, it's pushing down. And that should make things drive up. Switch legs. So one is a much more passive lunge, just lunging down forward, letting gravity and your mass do that work, leaning into the earth. And if it accepts you into its mud, then wonderful. And if not, you stay where it accepts you through there. Push. Now on that, I want you to push down into the earth. And I don't want you to break through. I'm going to use the word pierce, but I don't want you to break through the floor in a literal damage, violent way. But I want you to break through the connection that's limited at the surface. And I want you to push. All right, downward facing dog pose. Lengthen, lengthen a lot. Let's go ahead and take your right leg and lift it up really, really high. Okay, work your right foot up to the front and come into a full lunge. And you can set that up. First warrior pose. Take a couple of breaths. Just breathe. And just soften right into the middle. And then when you're ready, let's do a little chaturanga, a little vinyasa. And you're welcome to just stand up and switch legs. I'm going to do my chaturanga kneeling. Cobra or up dog. And stretch it back. Please take your left leg and lift it up. And then work your left foot to the front. First warrior pose. I'm going through my transitions a little different. I'm doing a lot of kneeling, taking care of some of my own stuff here. So feel free to just kick the leg through, pop on up. On your next exhale, step to the front and fold forward, Uttanasana. Go from length to just bow. And this bow at the moment is just gravity. So just let that gravity take you down. On your way up, bring your hands to your hips and give your shoulder blades just a little squeeze. Come on up into standing. Let's go through it again. Inhale and stretch up, take it way up tall. And exhale, take a forward fold. And then inhale and lengthen. If you need, please use a yoga block to lengthen. And then downward facing dog pose. In your down dog, you're welcome to take your right leg and lift it and even use some of the momentum to just kick that right foot all the way to the front. Maybe I'll explain in a different class why I'm going through some of the kneeling options. First warrior pose and reach. Breathe. So I want your body to be fairly active, especially lower in the foundation, but deep inside, I want a softness. Let's go ahead and switch sides. You can stand up and switch. You can do a regular chaturanga vinyasa. You can also just keep it to just a down dog transition. Left leg up and left foot to the front. First warrior pose. So when you get in here into this pose, just breathe right into the middle, soften right into the middle. And downward facing dog pose. Feel free to do a chaturanga there. Next, let's bring your right foot to the front and take a little lunge. And here, so passive, more just lean against the earth. Take your opposite hand. And for today, I'm going to use a yoga block to start with. So on that hand, now that's where I want something different. I don't want to just passively lean down through this. So I want to take this arm and I want to push. And what I want to do is I want to pierce. I want to pierce through whatever type of connection keeps me from rising. So if I just lean and I just keep melting, the way I'm connecting doesn't help me grow. So I want to push through the surface, like I'm going to pierce through it. Switch sides. Feel free to do a chaturanga, all that wonderful stuff. Left foot forward, right hand down. And again, not the passive lean, not the just soften down, but I want to take this, I want to put some muscle energy, I want to put some tone, and I'm going to hug inward or just make a rigid tone all the way down. But then right when I get to the shoulder, I want to push. I want to push this out. So the connection that I make into the yoga block, into the floor, go ahead and stretch up. It's a connection that is so deep that what happens up here is it grows. That's what I want. I want to break through whatever that barrier is that keeps me from growing through this situation. Downward facing dog pose. Let's take your right leg and bring it to the front of your yoga mat. If you want to start in the kneeling lunge, you can. Plant, reach. If you're in kneeling, tuck your back toes under, and I don't want you to just pull the hip up. On the back leg, push down so that the hips ride up. Okay, a little bit different transfer. Shift your weight into that front leg. So we're going to go just to first warrior pose. So if I'm going to do that, and I'm not just going to use my momentum and swing into second, I actually have to push. I have to make a deep connection. Chaturanga or downward facing dog pose. Please bring your left foot to the front. And with your right hand down, turn. On this side, I'm not showing the kneeling variation. It's up to you. Come into that left leg. And then just right up. First warrior pose. Breathe here. Soften right into the inside. But it's not soften all this so that it's less integrated. Chaturanga or downward facing dog pose. Let's go right foot to the front and briefly thigh stretch. So I'm in a kneeling lunge here. Left leg forward. My fault, right knee forward, left knee down. Thigh stretch. And take a breath. So here, soften in. Maybe even soften how you respond to a really tight thigh stretch. And that might be the way to melt through a reactive barrier. Tuck the toes. First warrior. All right, shift your weight into that front leg. And I got to take that leg now and I got to connect in a way where I can grow. So push, pierce, get into the earth and drive yourself up. Now, I'm using this word pierce, tree pose, by the way, because I like that it's to get through, but I don't want it to be violent terminology. Tree pose. Think of like breakthrough. Okay. Let's take that same foot right back behind us. If you're at home and you want, you can put your other hand on a counter, a chair, a wall. Open it up and reach. Good morning. Back into first warrior pose. And chaturanga or down dog. Left foot forward, right leg, thigh stretch. So we want to take this to the mat more. We have patterns. By the way, drag your heel towards your rear end and even take your hip back towards it. I'm giving you the front view so it's hard to see. But instead of pushing the hip forward here, I'm going to take the hip back. Thigh loop. So we have movement patterns. One of the reasons why lots of people do yoga asana practice is to de-stress, disconnect from movement tendency or pattern that takes more energy, has a lot more stress and strain in it. Go ahead and let go of your foot. If possible, just push right up. Try to come up onto that foot. And let's go with tree pose. Now, this is just kind of an analogy. So when we have folks who come in and they want to work on their posture or the way they move, this is still a pattern. This is a behavior. Let's go for bow. Take that foot back behind you. Tip it forward. Press back. Take a few breaths. And so right now, maybe part of the body wiggles and wavers too much. First warrior pose. Doing good. On your exhale, chaturanga or downward facing dog pose. Let's go with your right foot to the front. First warrior. And then please open it up to the side. Second warrior pose. Tip it back. And tip it forward. Bring that front arm down to your front thigh. Parshva Konasana. Stretch up. On that front arm, push. Get through the tendency or the pattern of just lean. Reach. All right. Downward facing dog pose. Go all the way through your vinyasa, whatever it is, even standing up and just switching legs. And then work your left foot to the front. First warrior pose. And open it up to the side. Second warrior pose. Just take a breath. So soften into a place where if you did find out, you're something's collapsing, soften into the place where that's not going to throw you off so much. Lean it forward. Take a breath. So one of the most basic corrections we can do to our form and our movement is just to shift the way that we plant when we move. So right here in this arm, I want to break out of the habit of just lean, just letting that shoulder. So if I push a lot, notice how all this moves. So this is root to rise. So I want to put that idea on it. I want to root so well. And think of roots. They don't just stay across the surface. They penetrate through the surface. And that's where they plug into something that helps growth. So root and rise. Huge stretch up if you can. But you gotta break past. You gotta break through the habit of just lean. This conservation of energy and avoidance of harder work at the moment. Downward facing dog pose. Let's bring your right foot up to the front and take a kneeling lunge. So right foot forward. And I'm going to show this a little bit different. If you're going straight ahead, you can just turn your back leg. So I turn my back leg this direction. But what I'm going to show you is that I'm just going to take my front leg and open it up. Up to you. You can do it however you want. So my back leg is going different than my front leg. Lunge sideways. Now, if you'd like, grab a yoga block. I'm not just shooting for any stretch because there's a lot of stretches that you could get here. I'm shooting for the stretches that my body's been calling for. So you might do this a little different. You might shift your loop or your spiral, your kidney or your shoulder. Try to reach. So one of the toughest things on this, like what are we going to break through to really serve you well? It needs to be connected. Come on, back up, switch sides. It needs to be connected to what you need. I know, like in our home right now, between my wife and I and my son, each one of us are working on slightly different things to break through, to break out of a pattern or habit. Lunge and reach. So on this first one, it's straight up, but I don't want it to just place the arm vertical. I want to push the arm. I want to push the arm up. And it's going to come all the way up through here. And part of it's connected down here. This is my breakthrough here. And it creates a whole different rise. Pierce that boundary or barrier, that habit or tendency that locks you down. Downward facing dog pose. Please bring your right foot to the front. First warrior pose. If you'd like, bring a yoga block with you. Shift your weight into that front leg in balance. What? And then let's take the opposite hand down. You can bring your same side hand, so right foot forward, right hand on your right hip. And there's a tendency here to just lean into this. But I want you to push. Now, things like spirals and stuff like that, that can really reorganize where we're pushing from, what we're extending energy out through, and how we take the energy back in. It's not today's topic, though. Take that back leg and lift it up a lot. And then I want you to see if you can just take your arm straight out and look that way. Lift your head and look that way. First warrior pose. Chaturanga or downward facing dog, or you can do this move, stand up and switch. Go through your vinyasa, then when you're ready, left foot forward. Take a breath, soften in. So I'm continually softening into some spaces, and from that place I soften in is often where I'm extending out and trying to make a breakthrough. Take your weight forward, and please don't just lean on this leg. I want you to push through it. You know, you could pretend that you're going to take that leg and you're going to push it through the floor, not like a wrecking ball that just slams down into it, but more like elastic. So through the floor, and then wonderful root with the organic nature that those roots penetrate, they gather something in, and I need to be rooting out or extending out from focal points, energy points, so that what I get back in from this helps me turn, helps me grow, helps me rise. Take that left arm and just take it out, lift your head and turn. Don't worry about up for today, just out. You can even do it again. Here on this right arm, push until you turn. See that? And first warrior. Take a breath. On your exhale, chaturanga or downward facing dog pose. Let's bring your right foot to the front and take a kneeling lunge. Okay, we're gonna work another twist. And a breakthrough doesn't always have to be a breakdown. It doesn't always have to be violent. To break away, to break out, to break through, to penetrate, to pierce. When you're ready, we're gonna take the opposite elbow and we're gonna take it just a little bit to the outer thigh. Not the inner, not right on top, just a little bit to the outside. And here's part of my difference. Right here, if I'm just leaning the two surfaces together, there's a connection. It's very out on the surface. It's not very deep or intimate. To really make a change, one of these two or both of these two surfaces has to seek, has to have an energy. Well, I shouldn't say has to, can reach, and it needs to connect through the surface. And that's where we get not just tip to tip, but then we get all the way in. So that arm there, I want to push. Watch the difference. If I just relax, I just lean the surfaces together, there it is. This should not hurt or damage this. But I want to connect, and this is one of our ideas of like the bones. The flesh is just going to accommodate, but the bones, if I can push, see how it rises. Take a breath or two. Those of you who want to take this a little bit more intense or farther, you're welcome to tuck your toes and lift your back knee. And let's switch sides. So it's not a surface connection, although we have surface connections. We're just walking down the street. Hi, or cordialities. Take your elbow across. And that fills maybe a societal role. Plant, instead of just lean, pierce, press, root. Do the same thing with this arm, down into this hand. You think about the fingers going through, pierce, press, root, drive it through there. And the growth that's happening right now, the boundary or barrier, is that my body's being driven up against that force of gravity. And then we're growing out from the middle. And what I'm growing now isn't just out from my own focal point, it's out from the focal point of the earth. I'm rising the direction that the earth gives off heat from deep inside. All righty. Let's take your right foot forward and have your left knee down. So these are kind of short classes. I hope you're cool with that. If you would like to do a quick Vinyasa, quick Chaturanga Vinyasa, flex your foot and toes, ankle back, and then see if you can get up really, really tall. And if you can, here, I think I'm getting a phone call in the background. On this pose, if you would, here in the back leg, push. And you might see my hips move. It's hard to get a full view, but push. On the front leg through the heel, don't just let the heel rest into the floor, push it down. And you'll probably feel a change in the muscle tone, the tension, the heat maybe. So in the back of that front leg, I'm trying to turn on my hamstrings while they're in a stretched position so I can root down. I'm not just going to lean the heel into the floor. If I do that, this knee is going to go down. But if I can pierce my heel into the ground, the knee is more driven up. And that's like when you watch, when we were at the park yesterday, I saw a person younger than I jogging, and it just looked like they looked like a gazelle kind of floating over the surface of the ground. And they weren't really floating over it because they had to come into contact periodically, and it just kept them afloat. The way that they made contact, and the fact that they were 20 or 30 years younger than me and had springs for ligaments and tons of cartilage, and they weighed a lot less. They had the runner build, that cross-country build, so elegant. but it also spoke to their form and their connection to the ground below them. Switch legs. If you want to think about this outside the body, it's really easy to get into the day-to-day surface cordial relationship with other people, with your home, your belongings, and your own self. Like if you think about, I know that in the Anusara community, sometimes we get deep into the philosophy. So if you've ever heard one of the philosophy teachers talk about abhisheka, or like the ritual washing of a murti or a statue, is very, very kind and gentle and done with the greatest respect. And this is a ritual, again, that pierces through the mundane daily connection between a piece of wood, metal, statue of some deity, and the person doing it. Here, push down on that front heel until a change, a greater intimacy is developed. Now, if you're thinking at home, this is very active and we're not softening and melting enough and enough, well, you're probably a little bit right. And one of the ways you could relate to the fatigue or the intense stretch feeling is to soften and let it come in more. All right, let's shift out of that left leg. I want to go back to that side stretch. So I'm going to go with that right leg more out to the side, and I'm going to try to turn my torso and my hips more forward. Then lunge it to the side. And I'm going to see on this one, big reach and maybe even more movement. So I'm going to use this as part of my hip opener work. And I want to push down here and here. Bring it down and reach. And come on back up and out. Other side. Okay, kind of a quick session. We're going to try to do a little core work at the end here. Take it to the side and reach. And come on out of that. Okay, come on down towards your belly. Good to see you. So we're going to start with your forearms right, almost directly underneath your armpits. And I'm going to start with my knees rather than my toes. So if you want to lift your heels a little, if I get this just right, it'll look like I have bunny ears. Hopefully I did that well. Okay, through your forearms and elbows, push. Through your knees, push. Bring your hips up. And then right in between your hips and like your kidney area, I want you to just, on your exhale, push down and see if you can tighten up the front of the kidney area. And feel free to use the exhale if you haven't gone through some of the breath work that we do sometimes, or that I do sometimes. I don't know if everybody does it. And I want you to stay here. And when you get up to like being fairly tired and tense, this is a plank, by the way. Hips about shoulder height, ribs, a lot of kidney puff, and shoulders broad. When you get right up to that point where you're thinking, I'm at home, I could easily go get a croissant and a cup of coffee. I want you to take a breath. And you could soften into a deeper place, but I also want you to fire up some energy that says, stay with this. I want you to turn on some energy and plug in to the pose, plug into the floor, plug into your core. And I want you to keep that connection vibrant for a few moments. And let it release. Okay. Now, if you would, we're going to take that right leg and just set it. Sometimes I call this my Gandhi, side saddle seat. It's not quite 90 degrees on all the angles, but it's close. And then we're going to take that arm off to the side. So this is my right arm out. Now, for like a side plank, this is the knee and leg that's in the most common position. This is a little bit off. For my arm, I'm going to take it a little bit back. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to root here, push. Now, visually, what you might see is it looks like I'm pulling the shoulder down and in. That is the natural direction it flows when I am pushing out from the well-engaged place. So when I'm pushing down like this, I'm hoping you see this lift. And it's that connection, it's that specific connection. If I'm just leaning and I pull my shoulder back, see how it doesn't always make that rise. So it's a particular type of breakthrough or connection that's connected to that growth. On the arm push, now wake up your legs and see if you can lift both of them up. So it's not my fault, lift both hips up. This isn't pure side plank. I've got one leg more to the front. I've got another leg that's more in that side area, and you can reach over. And come on up, come on down, switch sides. So for the Anusara community, I know the study materials. So if you have gone through like an immersion or a training or a lecture and you hear about samsaras and samskaras and karma work, the samsaras and skaras are like pathways and events on them. And the philosophy is that we're going to stay on that path. We're just going to keep working that path. Yes, yesterday's path is probably today's path too. Press. So if your habit is to more lean, or when your hips come up, that this shoulder collapses, if that's your well-worn path, to change it, well, I'm just talking about the body now. You can't just soften all this stuff and change that pattern or path. That'll bring you right back to the same events, coming up with a collapsed shoulder, through the same process, coming up, going down, shoulder collapse, not really changing anything that I develop here, so it changes the way I work out there. So I need to do a particular type of piercing energy out of the groove. Push, use your legs, go hips up. So I'm trying to get out of the groove where I just lean. Push, you can go straight up, use both legs, or reach over. I got to apply a little heat, a little tapas. I got to do a little bit of work here to connect my root down and my rise and reach and grow out. Come on, back down. Switch sides. You're doing great, almost done. Plant your hand, push. I want to get this through the core, hips up. You can take this into a little transition if you want to. Big press, big breath, go for it. And back down. There you go, switch sides. Plant your arm and your hand, plant it, and I want you to do it different than the way you would plant your hand on this side of the couch and take a seat to binge watch another Netflix show. I want you to break through that groove, those tracks, so that we can create something different. Push, get it through the core, hips up, you can reach. So that leg thing I did here was I lifted it, planted. This is an open leg and reach. And bring it down. Even on the way down, look at that. I'm just going to keep it. So up or down, I'm going to stay with that new pattern. Now, I didn't tell you what your pattern needs to be, what your path needs to have in it. Anusara, some of our key language is the open to grace. So if you find that there are moments, common moments, tax season, big world issues, political seasons, whatever they are, when your pattern is not what you believe is the best karma or dharma for you, softening in so you can see and feel and gain insight, welcome in that a new path or process would be healthier or better, getting the most acceptance, least resistance, the most awareness, mindfulness, can really help reduce how much energy it's going to take to get out of that path or groove. And there are examples where the energy to get out of that path or groove doesn't sound like pierce the boundary or the barrier. So if you're thinking that this is way too aggressive sounding, get your journal out and think, what kind of energy will help you get out of a groove that just doesn't serve you or the people around you very well right now? This is Adam Ballenger. If I haven't met you before, it's so great to meet you here. If I haven't seen you in a while, miss you. I'm going to finish with an Om, and you're welcome right after this to lay back and do a Shavasana. If you want to do an Om on your own, take a deep breath. Om.